Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again. We're going to go to New England in the northeast of the country, the state of Vermont, and to be specific, a little town called Waitsfield in the Mad River Valley. Now apparently this little town is home to an extremely well respected brewery, and oddly enough, until my subscriber sent me some of these beers, I had never heard of these guys. From what my friend Rob Hopsine tells me, a fellow beer tuber, these guys are one of the original hazy New England IPA producers, so quite honestly I have no idea how this brewery has kind of slipped through the net, and I had never heard of them. I haven't seen their beers over in Copenhagen at any of the beer festivals that I would go to, or up in Gothenburg at the other ones. So yeah, here in South Sweden I have never heard of these guys. Back home in Scotland as well, I've never heard of them, and so I'm really not sure why actually. This is just a brewery that had never come into my little bubble, if you like. So yeah, as I say, from what I gather, they're very well decorated, they're very well respected as well, so fingers crossed this is going to be another really interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. So for this review then, we are going to go for the first time to Lawson's Finest Liquids. This one is the Double Sunshine, a double New England hazy IPA coming in at 8% ABV, and from what I gather this is the original double IPA that they produced. I actually have the Sip of Sunshine as well, and I was going to review that first because I thought, well, Sip of Sunshine, Double Sunshine, Sip of Sunshine will be the single IPA, but no, apparently that's a double IPA as well, also at 8%, and it's based on this one. Therefore this is the logical place to start with this brewery. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. And I'm sure this one will be quite an interesting beer actually, because of who sent me it. So on that note, a huge shout out and thank you once again to Chris Contreras, an American dude living in Belgium who's been subscribed to the channel for, you know, like 2-3 years, something like that. But he travels the world with his work, he visits lots of different breweries, and then when he comes back to Belgium he sends me these crazy American beers and various other things that you've seen reviewed on the channel over the last little while. The first beers that he sent me were German ones, I think, and then he sent me some Belgian lambics, and we've had 3 boxes, I think it is now, of different beers from the States. A lot of New England ones, but this time we also had some West Coast beers as well, which were pretty damn special, I have to say. So yeah, massive shout out and thank you to Chris once again. For you guys watching, I hope that you're enjoying this kind of Chris mini-series, as we'll call it. And to Chris, a huge thank you once again, and hope you enjoy this review as you've enjoyed the others too. So yeah, as I said, very curious to see how we get on with this one, so let's go for it. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Lawson's Finest Liquids. The very first time I'm trying one of the beers, as I mentioned, but I will be going to New England next year, COVID permitting, for my friend's wedding. She's getting married in Connecticut, and a friend and I are going to do a little bit of a beer tour around New England, so maybe we can get into these guys and do a little bit of an out and about filming, maybe even a meet the brewery segment. We'll need to see about that, so you might see more from these guys in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that takes your fancy. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly at the moment, thanks to Chris, and we're also getting a decent selection of American beers over here in Sweden, and I can get more just over the water in Copenhagen as well. So you will see that list added to regularly over the next while. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Lawson's Finest Liquids. So Lawson's Finest Liquids, as I've said to you already, are based in Waitsfield in the Mad River Valley, in the kind of northwestish part of Vermont, to the kind of southeast of Burlington and the northwest of Lebanon, which I'm not sure if that's in New Hampshire or if it's in Vermont, but yeah, to the northwest of that city anyway. But the brewery is a family owned business, and it's run by Sean Lawson along with his wife Karen. So Sean studied environmental science and then forestry, and he had a career in science and education before later founding the naturalist program in the Mad River area, and he still leads expeditions with those guys today from what I understand. But he was president of the Vermont Brewers Association from 2014 to 2017, and he was also an active board member beyond that for a further 9 years. Cameron, on the other hand, boasts a long career with the Vermont state government, having studied sociology and psychology initially, and then for a master's in public administration. And I think she does a lot of the kind of PR and business side of things with the brewery from what I understand. But Sean had actually been a home brewer for 20 years prior to starting up a nano brewery of 1 BBL, which is about 560 litres. He started this back in 2008 and just got his beers out there a little bit more, but a number of his beers won awards across the US, and so a bit later on in 2011 he upgraded the brewery to a 7 BBL system in what they call a big kind of sugar house type shed, which was right next to their house. Later on beyond that, after further kind of hype about their beers growing, in 2018 they opened up their Waitsfield site, which is where they're currently based. This place boasts an 80-seater tap room as well as a 7,500 square foot brewery with a 30 barrel system, which is pretty impressive. If you look at the pictures of this, it's quite a big site actually. But apparently they also brew a number of their beers at Two Roads Brewing in Connecticut, which means they can distribute their cans a little bit more widely. So you will see some of these beers listed as being brewed in Connecticut actually. And one of the things that you find with the states actually is that a lot of the different states have different distribution laws and things like that. So sometimes you're not allowed to take beer across the border, and it's, you know, it's almost like the kind of federalism, if you like, has got a little bit too, the legislation has just got a little bit too kind of encroaching, if you like, because I know in, you know, Germany and stuff, for example, which is a federal republic, you know, it's not quite as difficult to distribute your beers in different places and things like that. So yeah, kind of interesting that they've got they've got some brewing space as well in Connecticut, but their main brewing operation, from what I understand, is the one that they run with their tap room in Waitsfield. So yeah, that was all the information I was really able to find on Lawson's Finest Liquids. Like I said, we can maybe get up and visit these guys at some point next summer. It would be really cool if we can arrange that. It'd be nice to do an interview with Sean Lawson as well, if we can sort that out. We just need to see how the schedule works out and how the COVID-19 thing works out, because hopefully that's kind of buggered off by next year. But yeah, as I say, really cool to encounter these guys for the first time, and I hope that this turns out to be an interesting beer. Knowing Crystal, I'm sure it will be. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Lawson's Finest Liquids for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn about all the different beers that they've done. And as of October 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, according to Untappd, they've produced around 145 different kinds of beer. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. So once again, this is a 1 American pint can, so it's 473 millilitres for those of us who use normal people measurements, not this whole quarts and cups and weird thing that the Americans have going on. I always have to make fun of the American measurement system because it just makes no sense. Metric is based on water, guys. Come on, get with it. I think you guys are like the only country who don't really use it these days. But yeah, joking aside, this one I have to say is very, very nicely presented. I do like the sort of almost could you describe that as a kind of Aztec-y style artwork? You know, I'm one of the most artistically illiterate people in the world. I was always more music orientated, but I do have to say I quite like the design of that one. My friend Peter, the Clueless Drinker, is the man to talk to about the different artworks and things like that. But there you can see a little cartoony guy, Sean Lawson. But as I said, 8% New England Hazy Double IPA, this one. It says on the side here, our American Double India Pale Ale is packed with juicy, lush fruit character and dank herbal aromas thanks to the abundance of US grown hops. Lawson's Finest Liquids is a family-owned, award-winning brewery located in the picturesque Mad River Valley. Visit our brewery retail store and hand-hewn, I don't know that word, basically hand-built timber frame tap room in Waitsfield, Vermont. And I have to say, if you look at the pictures of that, it is very kind of it's a very beautiful building actually. When you go inside it, the woodwork on the roof and things is very, very impressive. And for me it's quite funny looking at these things, because you see these buildings over in America, and I didn't realise this until I moved to Scandinavia. You definitely see in that part of the world where they got a lot of their inspiration for these wooden buildings from. You can definitely see it. And when I was young and travelling across to the States quite regularly with my mum and dad, I never really thought about it. But then when you come to Scandinavia, you're like, hang on a second, going through the countryside the first time, you get these similar style buildings. But yeah, a lot of Swedes and Danes and Norwegians went across to the States, mainly Swedes, because Sweden wasn't doing very well economically. But yeah, that's by the by. But a nice can, this one, 473 millilitres, 8% double New England Hazy IPA. So let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. The thing that I'm very curious to see with this one is how exactly it turns out, because the thing that really surprised me, for example, when I tried Alchemist, was the whole farmhousey vibe that beer had, and that was something that I was not used to, because a lot of the New England IPAs that we were getting over here in Europe, from the likes of Gamma, Gamma Dry and Bitter, Amar, Mikkeller, Toil, all of these guys in Copenhagen, along with Stigbergets, OO and things like that in Gothenburg and stuff, they were very kind of oaty and creamy, or kind of bitey and wheaty, sort of like Trillium and Treehouse. But then when I tried Alchemist for the first time, the whole kind of farmhousey sort of thing that these beers had was a great surprise to me. So I'm really curious to see what this one is like. So we'll need to talk about that a little bit. Yeah, because it's Lallemand yeasts, I think, in Vermont. Or I think Lallemand and different Vermont yeasts that are mainly used over here, and quite a number of breweries over here in Europe and Scandinavia will use these kind of things. So yeah, on the pour, this one looks very, very nice. Safe to say this is not the haziest of IPAs that I've had from New England before. This one actually almost has a little bit more of a West Coast type haze to it actually. I don't know if this one says what the ingredients are on the side, whether it would say oats. I know, because yeah, it depends on what state it's from. Some states have the regulation that you have to have the ingredients on the side, some states don't, and I'm guessing that Vermont doesn't. Does it actually say that this one... this one is actually brewed in Vermont. That one's not brewed in Connecticut. But yeah, this one I have to say, it does look very nice. Lovely kind of bright yellow colour, though it does have a little bit of a kind of orangey amber tint to it, but yeah, mainly a kind of yellow colour, this one. You can see when we poured this beer, it had about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. That's just fading away to be a very thin foamy layer at the moment, but it is kind of leaving a nice kind of creamy ring around the edge of the glass. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But yeah, really nice looking beer, a kind of deep yellow colour, this one, just a little hint of amber in it. But yeah, it looks a little bit more like a West Coaster for me, to be honest. As I say, not the haziest or the soupiest and gloopiest of IPAs that you're going to find from New England. So curiosity piqued, let's say that. So let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one and see how we get on. Right. You can smell straight away that this one's a little bit boozy. Let's just say that. I've got a feeling this one is going to be a little bit farmhousey just from that aroma. So yeah, with this beer straight away you can smell that kind of nice bready base to the beer. It's got a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty character. There is a good little bit of graininess coming out of this one as well, and you're getting some of these nice kind of rusticy Vermont yeast type notes, a little bit of a woodiness to it, a little bit of a graininess, maybe even a slight kind of herbal touch actually. So yeah, it's quite interesting in that sense. You do get a fair little bit of brown sugar out of this one though, I think. One of the trends that's coming with a number of the Swedish breweries at the moment is they're putting this, their beers come across as being a little bit of a kind of having a Werther's Original butter candy type flavour to them in the middle of the palate. And it's amazing how the New England style has evolved over the years compared to what it was back in 2015 when it first appeared over here. So it's always interesting for me to go back and try these original American examples. But yeah, the aroma of this one on the malty side of things is very nice. You'll know if you've watched the channel before, I'm a sucker for a good malt base. But I will say there is a bit of a straight up caramel on this one, but you can smell with this beer it has a little bit more of that kind of grainy, biscuity, McVitie's digestive kind of thing in there as well, and that sits on top of that kind of bread crusty, that kind of brown bready, bread crusty type quality that I was talking about underneath. But like I say, you can pick up a few of the kind of slightly woody, herbally, grainy undertones, which I suspect is coming from the yeast. Yeah, I think that kind of sums up the malt base on this one pretty nicely, to be honest with you. But yeah, you can smell straight away this is a boozy beer, and it has the same level of kind of booziness that you'd expect of a kind of more West Coasty IPA, to be honest with you, because the New England ones usually kind of cover it quite well, to be honest, but you can smell straight away with this one that it's a little bit boozy. On the hoppy side of things then, where to go with this one? So the green side of the hops. I would say that this one is, it's got a wee touch of earthiness to it. Going by the aroma of this one, I find this, you know, quite orangey, to be honest. It has got the tropical fruits as well, but the first impression I have of the aroma here is that it's quite orangey. So yeah, a little bit of earthiness in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a wee touch of Mosaic or something in this. But then again, I'm not sure exactly when this beer was first produced. Mosaic hasn't been such a popular hop for quite a while. It could be Amarillo. Amarillo being the more kind of orangey, the more oily orangey hop, the original, one of the original high alpha acid hops, about 11-12% if I remember right, along with Citra and you know, Citra and Simcoe were the big fruity ones along with that one at the same time. Mosaic's kind of taken over. But yeah, on the green side of the hops for me, a little touch of earthiness coming out of this one, but not too much. You get a nice big kind of floral aromaticity out of this beer. I don't know if I would say this is, would we say this is dank, or would we say it's more floral and spicy? I find this one more floral and quite aromatic, to be honest. It's got a little bit of spice to it. Wouldn't be surprised if they're using Columbus in this as their bittering hop. Tomahawk and Zeus are also options for that, quite popular over in the States. But yeah, it's quite floral, this one, but there is a wee degree of spice to it, in fairness, on the green side of things, and then you've got a bit of lighter grassiness at the front of the nose. So I would say that this beer is quite aromatic, not overly spicy, but yeah, the aroma goes together quite nicely in this one. You can see the glass is sweating a bit. I've maybe had this just a touch too cold, but we'll see when we taste it. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, for me, I find this one really quite orangey. Like I said, it's got a nice kind of quite bright but still quite oily orangey character to it. I've got a feeling from the aroma there's a bit of Simcoe in this as well, because it's got that slightly more oily, passion fruity note that you would expect of Simcoe. Simcoe can behave quite differently depending on what beer it's used and what malt base it is. In black IPAs it's red fruity, in the New Englands it's you know, got a lovely kind of smooth passion fruity note to it. And if you put it in a more kind of caramelly orientated malt base like a West Coast IPA, it's a lot more oily actually. It's a really Jekyll and Hyde hop, and I think that's why a lot of people like it. It's very versatile. So yeah, I've got a feeling there might be a bit of Simcoe in this, because you get a wee bit of that kind of passion fruity note. You know, there's a wee bit of mango in this one as well, but I think, to me, it strikes me as it's got a little bit of an orange note at the front of the nose, and then behind that you've got a few tropical things like a bit of that oily passion fruit and a wee bit of mango as well. There's maybe a wee touch of pineapple coming off this one too. But yeah, this beer, in terms of the aroma, it strikes me as quite old school, if you like, in terms of the IPA style. It's you get there's a lot of new hops these days, and I'm guessing if this one is their first double IPA, it will be a more old school hop profile that's on this. So I would think maybe Columbus, maybe Amarillo, although it has the wee earthiness makes me wonder about Mosaic. I don't know, but yeah, you've got a nice little bit of passion fruit and things in there as well, so it could be either Citra or Simcoe, or maybe a combination of both. But yeah, lovely aroma nonetheless. For me, quite orangey leaning, but with a bit of tropical fruit in behind it. But yeah, not sure exactly how this one's going to turn out in terms of exact places on the spectrum and stuff, but it certainly smells very nice. So take a bit of time and ponder that over before you try it. We're going to taste this beer now. So this one is the Double Sunshine. Double IPA coming in at 8% ABV from Lawson's Finest Liquids in Waitsfield in the northwestish part of Vermont. Thank you again to Chris for making this review possible. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Oh, right. This one's quite different again, to be honest, compared to what I've had from other New Englands. This one's almost got, it's definitely got a bit of that kind of breadiness and graininess and rusticy character you expect of the New Englands, but it's got a wee bit of the brown sugar that you'd want of a West Coast IPA as well. That's interesting. I really wondered from this one if it was, I was curious, like, is this going to be a kind of West Coasty IPA? And it definitely has a bit of that vibe about it. Safe to say. This isn't what I expected at all. But I will say straight away, this is a pretty damn nice beer. So thumbs up to Lawson's Finest Liquids once again. And yeah, it does in a lot of ways It comes across almost like more of a kind of low bitterness West Coast IPA, to be honest with you. I don't find this beer that bitter at all. Although this will be one of these times where I'll say that and then someone will comment like, oh no, this is 70-80 IBUs, it is actually quite high. Sometimes it can just happen like that. IBUs can be a bit funny, but yeah, I find this almost like a kind of low bitterness West Coast IPA. But the New England's, of course, the New England IPAs, from what I gather, have always been low IBU beers. But yeah, this is nice. I really like this one. I don't know if Chris was thinking about that. Chris knows that I lean a little bit more towards the West Coast IPAs, to be honest with you. And I don't know if that's what Chris was thinking with this one, and that's why he chose to send me this, because this one does have quite a bit of a West Coasty vibe for me, but it has, you know, the smoothness and some of the yeastiness you'd expect of the New England, as well as the low bitterness. So it's almost like a hybrid IPA for me, this. I will say that is really very nicely done. So it's a thumbs up from me, definitely. Yeah, I really like this. So again, massive thank you to Chris. Yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. Enjoyed the first few sips of that. So straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of pale malty bready sort of thing. That blankets the middle of your palate, but the breadiness you get on this really is quite grainy. It is more kind of rustic and bread crusty, maybe a little bit like a kind of wholemeal brown bread sort of thing. That really forms the backbone of the beer, and as you progress further into the aftertaste with this one, you can feel that sort of graininess just on the very base of your tongue, just pushing its way out a little bit. And if you go towards the back third of your palate, you can definitely feel the breadiness just thickens up a wee bit, and you get more and more of the graininess out of this one, which is really quite nice. So yeah, this is a really interesting beer for me. This is not what I expected. As I say, I was curious as to whether, is it going to be more oaty and creamy, more wheaty and bitey, more farmhousey, but it's something completely different. This is almost like some of these new versions of West Coast IPAs that we're getting these days. That's what this beer really makes me think of, as a kind of modern, the modern, or if we call it, the modern interpretation of the original West Coast IPA, the low bitterness version. But it's certainly a nice beer. Won't take anything away from that. And for me, it's quite comforting to try these beers from, you know, the really established and well-respected breweries, because trying things like this, you really see the breweries that we have here in Sweden and across the water in Denmark, as well as some of the ones back home in Scotland as well. You see that the quality of the beers that we are getting over here in Europe is of the same level as what's going on in the States. That's a really kind of comforting thing for me. That's why I like reviewing these American ones. But yeah, like I say, the malt base of this one is nice. It really just strikes a chord with me. I like a little bit of sweetness in my malt base, as you'll know if you're a regular watcher. But yeah, so on the back third of your palate, like I said, it's got a slightly thicker kind of bready note to it, and as you come further forward, you can feel it smoothens out a little bit, and then as you go into the kind of middle third of your palate, the thickness just drops down, and then you feel it kind of smoothing out a wee bit. There is a little touch on top of that. I do wonder if there is a bit of oatiness, if there's a little bit of oats in here, because it does have a wee touch of that kind of oaty smoothness to it, particularly towards the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue. But yeah, I think kind of brown bready base, a little bit of an oaty quality in there. Then on top of that, you've got a slightly more oily character. So there's a bit of sweet caramel right in the centre of your palate. And as you move further out from that, middle third, that kind of very middle point of your palate, you'll get a wee bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive, grainy biscuit sort of thing, or cookies as the Americans would call it. But yeah, the way that the brown sugar in this one comes out, I think, is really quite nice, and that lingers there into the aftertaste as well, with a few of those yeasty elements coming out of the beer. So yeah, this is a really interesting one, I have to say. This is not what I expected at all from the New England IPA. Yeah, but yeah, the malt base is really nicely done. Let's just see. Let's check that there was no sediment in this, and there wasn't, obviously. Yeah, it's quite nice. Nothing sitting on the bottom of the can either. So yeah, it's just a bit of a surprise, this one, let's just say that. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate, you've got there is a nice little touch of earthiness to this one. As you come further forward along the sides of the palate, the beer gets nice and big and floral and aromatic. There is a good little bit of spice to this one. I wouldn't be surprised if Columbus has been used in here. It does have a good kind of aromaticity to it as well. But yeah, I like how that goes together. So yeah, nice big floral aromaticity, like I say, a bit of spiciness there. I'm pretty sure Columbus has been used in here, or if not that, Tomahawk or CTZ blend or something like that. But then yeah, round the front curve of the palate, definitely a little bit lighter and grassy for me. And you can really feel that the bitterness of this does build a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. But behind that front curve of the tongue, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get the nice oily bubble and the juicy fruity esters just rolled away out of this one. So if you go towards the back third of your palate there, at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a slightly stronger kind of passion fruity, almost slightly grapefruity note out of this one. But as you move further forward, that just kind of mellows out a little bit, and it becomes a wee bit more almost kind of mango-y or something. So yeah, it does become a little bit more kind of juicy and mango-y. There's a little bit of kind of softer tropical note to this one as well, but I really find it, yeah, passion, a little bit of grapefruit, a little bit of passion fruit, then quite mellow and mango-y. There might be wee touches of apricot or something like that, but not overly much, mainly kind of mango. And then as you reach the front half of that front third of your tongue, for me, it's got a nice big oily, orangey character to it there. So I think I do get a feeling there is Amarillo or Mosaic or something like this. Another option would be Azacca or Sabro as well, but Sabro's got that big coconutty thing. It's not Sabro. So I think Amarillo or Mosaic in this one for sure. But yeah, the fruity side of the beer is really nice, and the oranges kind of linger there. You do almost get, on the very tip of the tongue, you do almost get a slightly lemony, zesty sort of thing, but I don't think it's quite pungent enough to say that there's like Centennial or something in this that's doing that too. But what I will say about the flavour profile of this is that it's really nicely done, and this beer is just not what I expected at all, but it is a lovely, lovely beer. The more and more I drink it, the more I think it's more of a West Coaster, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's the more I drink of it, it almost seems like a slightly lower bitterness West Coast IPA actually. So yeah, this one for me gets a big thumbs up. This just hits the spot for me. If you've watched the channel, you know I love a nice sweet malt base, and I also love the kind of orangey leaning IPAs, and that's right bang on the spectrum where this one lies for me. So yeah, thumbs up to Lawson's Finest Liquids. You've got another fan here now. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, what would we say about this? I'd say that this is kind of top end of mid-bodied, something like that. As I've explained on the channel before, I've always found that the American beers are a little bit lighter in the mouthfeel than the Scandinavian ones. I'm not sure exactly why that is. Maybe just different, different water profiles and all of these sorts of things. But yeah, this one for me, it's kind of top end of mid-bodied. Yeah, I would stick with that. The carbonation is very smooth in this one. It does have a nice clean mouthfeel, and Vermont is quite a mountainous state from what I remember. Or from what I've never actually, have I been to Vermont? I don't think I have actually. I've been to Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, but I think I've not done Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. I actually need to do that. That's, as I say, that'll be a first for this beer trip next year. But yeah, it's a very mountainous state from what I understand. But yeah, it is really, really damn solid, this, in terms of that. Nice kind of clean mouthfeel to this one. Nice bit of oiliness, but mainly it's quite a nice clean mouthfeel that you get out of this beer. In terms of IBUs, what would we say about this? I'd say that this is maybe about 40 or 50 IBUs. I don't think this one's madly high. Not a madly high beer, this at all. But in terms of the malty base, like I say, it's got a lovely kind of, there is a bit of gradiness, pushes its way out of this one the further that you go into the aftertaste. You do get one or two little woody notes, which I'm guessing is from the yeast in this beer. So you do get a few of that, and that's one of the hints of a kind of New Englandy sort of thing. But yeah, malt base for me is mainly quite bready, nice and sweet actually, and then it's got a lovely juicy fruity character to it, this one. So yeah, this one hits the spot for me. Nice big oily IPA, a little bit of a sweet malt base, quite orangey leaning. That's exactly what I like in an IPA. So I think maybe that's the reason that Chris has sent me this one. And so yeah, thank you to him once again for that. But I think we should leave it at that for this review. This is a really interesting one to try, and I've really enjoyed this, so I hope you guys have as well. So let's leave it at that. This one was the Double Sunshine, a double IPA coming in at 8% ABV from Lawson's Finest Liquids in Waitsfield in the Mad River Valley, in the kind of northwestish of the state of Vermont. This is a really, really nice beer. Not what I expected at all. I was expecting, you know, more of a kind of New Englandy beer, but this strikes me as having some of the New Englandy kind of breadiness and smoothness to it, as well as a bit of the yeastiness, but it's got more of a West Coasty sweetness, a bit of a West Coasty type bitterness to it, as well as a more oily, fruity character, which again is something of the West Coast. So a little bit of a hybrid, but I think this really leans towards the West Coast end of the spectrum, I would say. But regardless, we can argue about sub-styles all day. The main point to take away, this is an awesome beer, and if you get the chance to try it, I think you will quite enjoy this one. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Lawson's Finest Liquids as well. And we will return to these guys for the other one, the little sip. The name of that beer's gone right out of my head now. It's typical. But yeah, you'll see another beer reviewed from these guys fairly soon. And as I say, maybe we can visit these guys later too. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys very soon. This was the Double Sunshine from Lawson's Finest Liquids in Waitsfield in the Mad River Valley in Vermont over in America. Thank you again to Chris, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out this beer.